You're going hungry so your kids can eat. It'll trickle down. You don't pay the rent, then you're out on the street. It'll trickle down. Plus the makers, they have to earn. When they've got enough money to burn, it'll trickle down. You go to the bathroom, then they'll dock your pay. It'll trickle down. You hope your night job won't keep you away too long. It'll trickle down. All you have to do is wait your turn. 20 years later, perhaps you learn if it trickles down.
Oh, hi, Ruby. Oh, hi, Ruby. Oh. Woo, woo, woo. Every time I tell someone I live in an RV, I watch their face. And it's just out of instinct, you know? Like, I watch their face to see how they react, and that's usually when I just start, oh, but it's really, you know, I can't afford to live anywhere else, and, you know, I have this dog, and then I found myself just stopping one day. I just stopped. And now I just tell people, yeah, I live in my RV. Usually then people will go, really? And then I love that reaction, because then I'll hear from people that say, God, I've thought about doing that, because I'm not the only one that's hurt. There's so many people. No, I don't mind much anymore telling people about it. I think that lasted for a few months, though. I was just a little bit embarrassed. Some people would maybe, they don't get that, though. They don't get it. They think that we're hurting something by being here. That's kind of how they treat us. We're afraid of you. You're adding a fear aspect to our neighborhood. You're making noise. You're making trash. Everything bad that happens down here is blamed on the RVs.
Well, we're in Seattle, which is, by all accounts, an absolutely gorgeous city, but it's also a city that is reeling from unprecedented levels of inequality, you know, economic, social, political inequality. And one of the major ways in which you can see this manifested is the cost of housing, and how at the same time that Seattle's wealth has grown by leaps and bounds since the official end of the Great Recession, we've also seen the city widening into really two cities. You know, one city where the wealthy and people with very high salaries can afford to live, and you know, they have a veritable playground for themselves. And on the other side, you not only see those who are homeless and poor and working class, but the entire middle class is on this other side now, where people are either homeless already, or they are couch surfing or doubling up with family members, or even if they actually do have housing right now in Seattle, they are one financial crisis or one rent increase away from being pushed out of the city entirely. And so you have a lot of people who may not be homeless, but have had to move outside of Seattle and yet face long commutes coming into work to the city every day because their jobs are here, but they can no longer afford the housing.
Well, homelessness is a phenomenon in this country of the last 40 years or so. We really didn't use the word homeless before that, and when we did, it meant something different. I've come across tracts going back to the World War I era and afterwards that describe homeless men, but what they mean by it, and it was mostly men at that time, living in boarding houses and flop houses, SRO hotels, single room occupancy hotels, that it was mostly a phenomenon of working men who didn't have family ties, and homeless in describing them meant they just weren't rooted socially. And especially in places like downtown Seattle, where we had just hundreds of these rooming houses and SRO hotels, there weren't social services like we have now. But for a few pennies a night, these guys could have a roof over their head and a warm place to sleep. People in the bars and taverns and pool halls and little diners and corner stores were the infrastructure of community that took care of each other. There were times where there was literally what we would now call literal homelessness. In Seattle, people did experience this during times of economic downturn, like during the Great Depression, where the Hoovervilles emerged. There was one big Hooverville downtown on the waterfront where the Coast Guard station is now, but there were also small Hoovervilles around town, where literally thousands of people lived in these shanty towns during the years of the Great Depression.
Seattle has always been a working class town, and it's old Seattle when there were single room occupancy hotels all the way down First and up Pine Street. It was a working class town, a port town. You could live here if you were poor. And those disappeared over the 70s and 80s and started getting replaced by higher end development. Probably the late 70s when there started to be a visible homeless issue in Seattle, like all over the country. You know, it was a bit before the Reagan years. There was deindustrialization going on even prior to Reagan. It was the beginnings of mass homelessness becoming an institutional part of our economy, just part of how things work in America.
People have always had problems, and people with problems used to still be able to put a roof over their head for a few pennies a night. That's what really changed over the course of the 60s and 70s, and we paid the price for that during the 80s and 90s. That low-income housing that used to exist went away and was not replaced. People who have more vulnerabilities are more apt to experience homelessness, and our natural inclination is to then focus on that person's deficits and that person's challenges, and to fix their challenges will fix their homelessness. But there's always more to take their place. It's the housing stupid.
So I'm Councilmember Lorena Gonzalez on the Seattle City Council, and I represent the entire city, all 700,000 people and growing every week. For me, it is a failure of our society to have allowed for so many years this to get to the point where it is. And so I feel a real sense of urgency and a real sense of commitment and a deep desire to find real solutions that will bring people inside in a city that is so prosperous for some, but unfortunately not for others.
You know, it's basically a housing affordability problem, and we are trying to catch up on tens of years of underproduction of affordable housing. Layered upon top of that is the problem of income inequality in this nation. And as the gap between low-income folks, middle-income folks, and upper-income folks widens and is sort of what we refer to as hollowed out, we're losing our middle class, and the divide is getting bigger and bigger.
I think our city has a lot of creative ideas about how to bring people inside. Unfortunately, what we don't have are long-term housing solutions because we don't have the revenue to build the massive amounts of deeply subsidized affordable housing that we need.
I think this is a very important message for people to hear, which is that if you talk to 10 different people who are living homeless, you will get 10 different stories about how they became homeless. This is a very heterogeneous community. And I think one of our difficulties is we are often looking for, one easy to understand reason about why people are homeless and one easy to implement solution that will get everybody back on their feet. And the fact of the matter is that there isn't. There's not one reason that people become homeless, and there isn't one easy to implement answer. There's some programs that work for some people, other programs work better for other people.
This isn't a situation where we're living in a country that has no resources and can't take care of it. We're living in one of the wealthiest parts of the world. It's shameful at this point, right? Like, it really is shameful. And it actually is what makes it compelling, how the dichotomy of the absolute unbridled wealth and paired right next to the unbelievable third world suffering that goes on our streets every day. The actual degree of suffering that's going on, if most people knew what that was right here in Seattle on a daily basis by so many people, it would drive people to their knees.
Today, for any homeless person, for that person to be offered shelter or any kind of help is absolutely critical, because for any human being to go through even one single night of homelessness is a devastating experience. It's inhumanity that this is even happening in our society, let alone at such an exploding scale.
There's something else to say. Here we are fighting over regulated tent encampments. Like, that was the issue. The first issue was, shouldn't we just be giving them tickets and policing them more aggressively? What we need for aggressive panhandling is more aggressive policing. And that was wrong, my opinion, that was wrong. But that was where the debate was. And then we were having an argument over whether we could permit more regulated tent encampments as a temporary response to it. But what was very clear was that despite the good work of the 10-year plan to end homelessness, it wasn't moving the dial. The policy discussions we were having, the political fights we were having, we were working on the margins of the problem. And I know today people, say, well, we're not spending the money effectively. And there's probably truth to that. You can always, find more effective ways to spend money, and you have to be rigorous about is the money you're putting into this working. But I think it's equally true that the scale of the response has to meet the scale of the problem. Our biggest issue with homelessness is one of political will. Are we really willing to go into the budget and reallocate dollars? Are we willing to think about who we're taxing and why? And are we willing to, take new and different approaches at a scale we haven't done so before? And the answer to all of those questions to date is, well, no. What we're going to do is we're going to try to adjust what we've been doing and hope that modest adjustments will deal with a problem that is now just growing and growing and growing.
We are not lacking in ideas for how to solve it. We know what works. What works is affordable housing. It's not a mystery. You don't need a PhD in economics or land use policies or urban planning or anything like that to know that it's very simple. The crisis people are facing is a lack of affordable housing. So what do we need? We need affordable housing.
The new urbanist view of housing, that we just need to produce more. And these are folks who adhere to that line, consider themselves progressive, and I think are progressive on lots of social issues. But this idea that just production is going to lead to affordable housing strikes me as very much the Reagan-era argument of trickle-down economics. And indeed, I will concede this, that building all that new housing now, that housing will eventually become affordable. Much of it will become affordable for people with low incomes, and that's going to take about 30 to 40 years. There is kind of a natural ebb and flow in human ecology that, as buildings wear out, as housing wears out, we rebuild it, we demolish it and rebuild it. When that ebb and flow gets broken, and we have development on steroids, that basically this growth without attention to its effect on the rest of the community, and a pace of development that makes sense for a community inevitably leads to situations like what we're seeing now. When we're destroying what's left of the housing that is affordable for people with low incomes and replacing it with housing that won't become affordable to them for 30 or 40 years, we're breaking that kind of natural human ecology in a way that has produced a crisis that is a catastrophe in our community. It's a catastrophe.
Government is not going to fix this. Homelessness, mass homelessness, is a permanent institutional reality in the United States at this point. Until we have a different set of values at what we value and what we don't, who we value and who we don't, more progressive tax solutions that fund the sort of infrastructure that we need to live in the sort of society that you or I would want to live in. What we are stuck with now is people who are most directly affected by homelessness, the people who are living out, suffering on our streets, who are devising their own solutions to meet their safety needs, to meet their needs for community, to meet their needs to be able to live in a sustainable way where they're not chased around all over the place and harassed.
Hi, my name's Eric Davis. I'm a co-founder, camp manager, resident manager here of Camp Second Chance. This is the security shack. First place you stop when you come into camp. You stop here, state your business, and we move from that point. If you're a new intake, they direct you over to the office where one of our board members would do an intake on you. I'll show you around. This is our kitchen. This is where all the food is prepared. There's a refrigerator, hot water sink, coffee pot, microwave, and 2 deep freezers. So sometimes we get frozen donations, and it's nice to have something to keep the food fresh. Every 4 hours, there's a security shift, and every shift has to sanitize every area of the camp. But this area here is our overnight guest tent. So if someone needed to come and stay overnight, this is a tent that they can come in. So this gives a person a comfortable night's stay as opposed to laying on the ground.
How long can they stay here?
Overnight guests leave at 7 in the morning. And so they can come in at 6 in the evening and stay till 7 the next day. They can get up, get coffee, get a general direction which way they want to go, or decide they want to come back, or decide they want to be a resident. This next tent is our donation tent. Generally, there's a donation coordinator in here that will come in, and she'll sort through all the clothing and things like that and hang them up and put them away and have people come in and get what they need. You first come in off the street, you generally don't have much. So you can come in and get these things and kind of freshen up, get your nice pair of clothes put on, go out and enjoy your day. So out yonder here, as we go along, we have a general common area. People sit out here, they cook. We'll have meetings here as well. We use these 3 propane stoves where we'll fry food, we'll barbecue food, and you can actually prepare any meal, your catfish dinners, your fried chicken. A lot of us just put together our monies and we'll have family meals. It's more or less a community. So nobody's waiting in line and eating all those things. We do things as a neighbor would do. Sanitation, very important for any resident encampment. You gotta have a place to wash your hands when you're coming out of the honey buckets. We have 50 residents here, and so we need to have sanitation. Again, the bucket next to it is the security comes. Not only does it get serviced twice a week by honey bucket, security shifts clean these honey buckets by hand every 4 hours. Every 4 hours, everything's wiped down, the handles and everything, because we don't want to get sick. We don't want any germs. Very important. as we go down, these are homes that were put in last year. These were put in by donors, but these are all put in by people that love us. There was no nonprofit that came in and built these. These were donated homes. So our glory part that we're really shining on right now is the Alki Road, what we call. Alki UCC has been coming out here weekly to finish up 7 to 8 more homes. If this door is open, I'll give you an idea of what one starts to look like. Insulated, very solid, firm, and every Saturday they're here putting these homes together. Now this is what one looks like on a short notice. Let's look at the next step. What you want to see your finished products begin to look like is one like this. This one is one anybody coming from a homeless situation would call a higher quality of life. Very much love put into detail, painting, insulated windows, insulated walls. The lighting on top is very, very meticulous. And it doesn't cost you any extra money. All of this material is used from the same wood. Instead of throwing it away, they took the scraps and made molding around. So we'd like to thank Alki for that, and the donors, and the volunteers. And so this whole row is basically unique designs in each one. These people come out here generously every week and put their love and their heart and their soul and all their time into building these homes for us. So we're grateful for all the things they're doing. The most important thing about it is the community. It's housed neighbors with unhoused coming together to bridge that bond, to create a safety, healthy, sanitized environment, and to bring a little love and insight on the stigmas of how resident encampments are ran.
This camp has a higher functioning population of people who work, people who have cars. It's a self-governing camp, which is I think really good. What I've found is that people in general, when you give them tasks, when they feel part of the overall interest in where they live and what they do, they take pride in that. Okay, it helps to establish a baseline of expectation. That's the beauty of this camp. For the majority of people in this camp, for the very first time for a lot of these folks, they're being relied upon. Okay, that's important. They're being relied upon. When you take someone who's been told their whole lives that they're not going to amount to much, or that they're making really horrible choices, and when you put that person in a construct that allows that person to take personal responsibility for the expectation, once you give that person that level of confidence, that level of expectation, it turns a lot of people's lives around, because it also helps to build trust. It gives them an opportunity to come up out of the shadows. Okay? For a lot of them, it's difficult to come out. They've been in the shadows for so long that you have to tailor-make ways to create baby steps to move them forward back into the light, and giving them an opportunity to be on a team and being relied upon and have expectations just like anybody else and treat it just like anybody else. It's a wonderful thing. I'm not saying that it works for all of them, but it works for the majority of them here at this site. It's a wonderful thing. And from that expectation, from that baseline, becomes other expectations. They begin to gain their confidence back. They begin to think about all those things that they can change now. We talk about what we do now. We don't dwell in the past. We don't lay blame in this office. It's just not what this office is for. This office is to help you move forward. And when they begin to get confidence, and a lot of that is based on the fact that they have to participate in this camp. And that participation generates a lot of positive attitudes and a lot of positive ways of looking, but more importantly, different ways of thinking.
Here's an interesting thought. You know, a tiny house that has, you know, all of the bells and whistles and is very mod and chic is, you know, cutting edge for urban living nowadays. because they're saying that the, new generation coming up, they don't want to be burdened with mortgages and, a huge house with a yard and all the rest of it. And, tiny homes, that's what it's all about, right? But you put them in a little village and you call it a homeless encampment, and now they are crime-infused shacks. I have heard from a number of people in homeless communities that surprised me when I first heard it. We would be talking about the price of housing, and I would say, houses are so expensive, it's just impossible. And they would say, you know what, I don't want a house. I don't want a house. What would I do with a house? I just want like a little apartment, a tiny little one-bedroom apartment, just some space for me. A percentage of them would be happy if we could go back to single room occupancy, right? The SROs, where you could pay a very reasonable price and you get one room with the bathroom down the hall, and they would be fine with that.
We're gonna start her up and let her warm up. So we play this game, try to make everything secure, and then wonder what's going to be the one thing that isn't secure that goes flying. There's really no method to this madness. It's just remembering things as I go. Okay. This thing gets about 7 miles to the gallon, I'm finding out. I like to do my little calculations, but I like to write down my trip, because this thing doesn't actually even change anymore. So I just have to keep track of it like that. And yeah, it's looking like about 7-8 miles to the gallon with a good old Greta here, which just kills me environmentally, And this was a smooth situation. Sometimes you're like ready to go, you have everything going, you turn the key and your batteries are dead. So now you have to spend like another hour charging everything back up, get out the generator, plug everything in, get out the chain so that no one steals it while you're just charging for just a little bit. It's the little things in life. Come on, baby. So the sweet spot is to go 55. So that is what we do, because we are all about conservation, not about speed. Oh my goodness. It's just beautiful. Having a clean situation for the whole week, it's such a rewarding feeling. This is non-potable water, so it's only for this. And when the pipes freeze in the wintertime, kind of miserable, because you're having to put this poo hose into your home, knowing that you're gonna have another week. All right. I'd say this is like, I think, a 47-gallon tank. The pipes can hold a few gallons. My hot water heater holds 5. So I did pretty good this week. Yeah, didn't have to worry too much. And then this is also a chance to clean up Greta, because I feel like people take me more seriously if my RV doesn't look like a shitstorm. I think my biggest policing moment, like it was the first month that I had been living like this, and I'd met this couple that lived in a smaller, crappier, older RV. I called them Iron Maiden and OG, and because I didn't know their names at first. But they were super friendly, always were hanging around. Every time I got off work, they'd be right at my door. And at first, it was really kind and awesome. And I asked them a lot of questions, like, what do you guys do for this? What do you guys do for that? And one of the questions is, where do you dump? And they said, wherever we have to. And that was the point that I thought, oh, gross. Oh, gross. And she's like, yep, sorry, it's just what we have to do. And I was mortified. Because I'm thinking, that's your poop? Eh? And so one day I am heading to work. Ruby was sniffing something behind my back tire. And then I noticed the long streak coming from where their RV used to be to where my RV is. Their poop had rolled all the way underneath me. I was sick for 2 days. Like, had to take off work. I was not well. We moved, we got the heck away from that. And then I approached them about it. I said, not cool. And they at first were like, well, what are you talking about? And I said, the fact that you dumped your shit and it rolled underneath my RV, that's what I'm talking about. And the gal was like, I'm really sorry. Like, immediately then switched modes. She's like, we just have to do what we have to do. And I thought, yeah, but don't do it. Don't affect everyone else. I mean, you're just two people. There are so many other people affected. So my home is important. I care about what other people think, unfortunately, sometimes more than others. But I have plenty of values, and that's not all of them. So you see all that black stuff on the water tank? That's my plastic welding job. It was a crack that went all the way across right here, and it was just pouring. It's one of those just kind of like you sit and you're just like, there's nothing I can do kind of moments. And I had inspectors come out and they were worried that I was leaking something toxic. And I said, please go check. Like, it is water, but it really sucks, I wasn't happy about it. And that's when I learned about the proposal for the dump site in Sodo area. It was from one of the inspectors. He said that it was shot down, that nobody wanted to do it, that there's a better way to fight homelessness than to cater to people that are living in RVs. Which that's how they refer to it, as like catering to us. Which maybe it is. Then we take these and we mosey.
I could always draw. I always did art. I always liked art. I remember when I was 7 years old. This is when I knew I wanted to be an artist. Yeah, my dad. He wasn't very affectionate. You know what I mean? He was just business, man. He worked a lot. My first drawings that I could remember were like of the Disney characters. He's seen it, and his face is lit up. Like, what? Like, you did this? Like, you did this? This is what you've been doing? Like, yeah, I did that, And he showed his friends at work, and he took it to church and showed all of them, and like, he was really proud, And like, I'd never seen him act like that before. And because of that, like, I knew. It was because of his reaction. I knew I was on to something, even at 7 years old, Growing up, I would watch Bob Ross at 12 o'clock every Saturday. My friends knew, do not knock on my door until after 12, until 1 o'clock, because Joe's watching Bob Ross. Like, they knew it after a while, And like, I would watch him and I said, I could do that. Like, I know I could do that stuff. And like, I picked up on the techniques and like the steps, So I kind of knew I had this idea of my talent, but I didn't believe that I could do it. Like that I could be an artist, you know what I mean? And when I left North Carolina, I went to Miami. So that was like the beginning of my journey. It was like, I went from New York to North Carolina. I went from there to Miami. And on the bus trip from North Carolina, the Greyhound bus driver seen the painting because I carried it onto the bus with me because it was still kind of wet, you know? It wasn't completely dry because it's oil. And he bought that painting off me for $300 in Jacksonville and gave me $300 for my first oil painting. And I was like, man, I'm gonna be an artist, man. This is what I'm gonna do right here. What it's like to be homeless? Well, you feel very nearsighted when you're homeless. You know, it's hard to really think of like next week, next month. It's hard to plan. You don't know what's going to happen next week. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what's going on. And then the structure that you do actually have is too tightly wound. You know what I mean? And it's overstructured almost. Like how can you expect a grown man that has a job or that's trying to better himself, provide, to have a 6 o'clock curfew? You leave the shelter at 5 in the morning. You're forced to leave out 5 in the morning with all your stuff, by the way. You sleep here, you move over to here to eat, but then you have to go over here to eat, and then you have to go here to eat, and then you have to be in at 6. You have no time to work, to do anything. You have no time to look for a job, unless you want to starve. You feel me? And that's what I had done a lot of times, because I have time to go here. I have to go over there, so forget it. I have to miss meals, you know? But someone who's not going to starve themselves, they're going to go to the mills, and they're going to get used to that, and they're just going to do the every day. It's all rigged to keep people, most of the homeless people, in a bubble so that they can be watched. That's how I feel. You know? And they can be monitored. You know? It's like, okay, there's the home. It's almost like the ghetto. You know? It's like the structure that they have is like the ghetto for the homeless. And we know where they're at. At least we know what's going on. Oh yeah, we'll fund it. We'll fund it. No problem. We'll fund it. It's that way we can control it. But I'm not that guy. And I'm saying, sometimes I sit back and then say I'm with these people and I'm looking back like, man, like they're stuck. They're stuck. And then you lose hope. After 2 or 3 years of that, you know what I mean? Where are you going to start? You know, you start losing hope. And then like, if you know, not everyone's built the same, man. And then you just, next thing you know, you're doing the same thing for 10 years. You know, I see people out there that are my age, man, have been out there for 15 years, man. Since I've been in Seattle, they've been out there, you know, in the shelters and homeless and wearing the same stuff, you know what I mean? It's like, what happened? You're my age. You're younger. You know, it's because they got stuck. They fell for the okie doke, the little carrot that they gave them. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to say that it's all bad, man, because they're helping people. But the structure that they have behind it is to monitor. You know, how are you going to get rid of, how are you going to tear down a mental institution, or only one? It's gone. Okay? And then close and cut the funding for the shelters downtown. Okay? Now you have the mental people that have nowhere to go, more homeless with nowhere to go, and then on top of that, the oxycodone, they took that away. They made it where you couldn't crush it and smoke it anymore, right? So now those people that can't do that drug anymore go to heroin. So you add the heroin to the mix now, okay? And then they open up more clinics. You open up more methadone clinics than shelters. Come on, man. It's obvious what they're doing. It's a game. So who's playing the game? They don't care about black and white. You see? But they'll feed us that. The media, that's their job at the top. It's to feed us this black and white bullshit so that people are focused on race. So you got white supremacy this and the Black Lives Matter movement here. And it's just this thing here. Right? While they're looking down and laughing. They did it with crack with black people. Now they're doing it to white people with methadone and with heroin. When they got rid of the Oxycontin pill, they knew that was going to increase, that was going to triple the heroin addicts. They knew it, and then they did it anyway. And the same pharmaceutical companies that did that are selling the methadone. How's the heroin getting here? We don't grow poppy plants here. I call it the great white dope. That's how I feel about homelessness. But then you have places and people that are good, that actually want to help, that actually see what I see, want to change things, and actually want to better the community. I mean, it's not all bad. Then you have those people that go the extra mile, you know what I mean? That are out there painting at 7 o'clock in the morning. You see what I'm saying? At a homeless camp. You're not homeless. You know? There's that. And that's what it takes. You know what I mean? And there's the structure, and then there's this tiny house structure. The tiny house structure doesn't have the structure that the city or that the government wants to have. That's why they're against it. Because it frees people. It provides opportunities. You know? It provides freedom. Period. You know, you can grow if you have freedom. If you're stuck in a cycle, you can't grow. How are you going to be in a shelter and worry about where you're going to eat next and how you're going to get there? How are you going to go to school? How are you going to get a class? How are you going to take a workshop? And then you got to be in a house of 6 or in a shelter. And then you get bit up by bed bugs on top of that. You wake up really feeling really good, you know? How can you do that? That's where these tiny house villages come in. And I knew it from the beginning when it was just tents, man. When I came to this place here, I haven't been in Nicholsville for 10 years. When I came here, I walked around and I'm looking at these tiny houses, but they used to be tents. And I moved the first stone for this to happen 10 years, a decade in. Now I need it, right? I built the first structure. It was a porta potty for the ladies, for Nicholsville, okay? I'm walking around here like, this is what we did it for, man. I remember in the middle of the night, it was like 3 a.m. We all got together and was like, yeah, this is the movement, man. And it was like 100 of us, man. It's people from churches and all kinds of stuff that joined in on us. And like, we occupied the Duwamish territory, okay? This is what we did it for. Was I walked around here like, these are houses now. They're not tents anymore. You know, that feels good. You know, that's what it's about, man. It's about housing, freedom, and then opportunities on top of that. You can't get that with the structure that they have for the homelessness now.
So right now we are going to see some of our friends they hang out at the park. And we like to come see them every Friday night, and we're hoping that they'll be there today because it's raining. So when it's raining, people aren't really out in the open, they will hide under cover. So we're gonna find them. So we made up 80 sandwiches last night and some sacked lunches with some fruit and chips. And I'm just getting together a little, I guess, goodie bag for a young man that we see over there. And hopefully he will receive it well. I mean, most people do. It's just some people don't want to admit that they need help. That's a hard thing. So, thanks. Okay. Usually we're on foot. It's takes a lot longer to find people that way, but from being on foot, we've kind of learned some populated areas that we go to. Oh, hey, how are you doing? Oh, what? What team are you on?
Solo Dolo.
Oh, yeah? What's your name?
Left alone?
You want to be left alone?
Yep.
Can I give you some? Okay. That guy, well, he had jail slippers sitting right next to him. That was the first thing I noticed. And I don't want to assume about anything, but I've been around plenty of people that are high or have, sleep deprivation, and I think that he was probably definitely sleep deprived or high, which, both mess with the mind in horrible ways. So, but he looked like he was right out of jail. It's a slow process. Initially, we just we come out here and we quickly, as quick as we can, try to build a relationship and a mutual trust, which it's a process. It takes time. It's consistency and genuine compassion. People can sense when you're faking compassion, and it's not gonna accomplish anything. A lot of people are separated from their families, so we just try to find out what is it that is hurting you, and is there something that I can do to help, whether that be track down your family and try to get you back in touch with them. Is it, do you suffer from addiction? Can I just keep praying for you until you're ready to get treatment, and then, walk with you through that process, so that you're not alone. Consistency is the biggest thing, though, and that's why we started coming out every Friday. And it took a while before they realized, like, oh, you're really like here because you care. You're really here to be here. You're not just here to check something off your box.
I was like, I have 3 boys, and I still have custody of my babies. I messed up doing right here last year. And I've never been homeless. I'm 30 years old. I've never been homeless or on drugs or anything ever until now. So, oh my God, I took my kids and my mom. So I'm like, I gotta have some space for a minute and like, re-up on life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, good for you. You have kids to eat. That's amazing. So how long have you been here?
I've been out here for like a year already, but not right here per se, but
right
in this area. And it's actually like, it was like the changes that I've seen like just in myself, because people treat you terrible out here. And
I know.
I wasn't like, I never really noticed how bad homeless people get treated, like terrible. And I'm like, and I'm not used to it because I haven't been in it, you know? You know, but like, it was like, I don't know, I grew up not like this, you know? And this kind of just blows my mind.
Is there anything else you guys need? Because we have a truck with like socks. I highly recommend that you just take the month or however long and do the treatment program just to be sure, you know, because you can't be sure.
I feel like 30 days even isn't that long anyway, you know what I'm saying?
And
So
it's not that long. I mean, if it means reunification of you and your boys, you know, and you know, going through that process, and then they, you know, we can get you into a place where you can do the time in the inpatient and you know, build that stability, and then a place that will help you with resources to, after, you know, get into housing immediately after for us, you know, your specific situation, okay?
So we'll work on it. I definitely, I'm very happy you guys came here today, because I talked to him about this, and it has to start now. Like,
thank you. I'm so glad that I met you.
I'm very glad to meet you too. That's awesome.
Don't forget, you gotta call me.
Okay, I will. I promise I will. I'll see you later.
Bye. I feel horrible, but sometimes I come out here and I see the same people, see them over and over and over and over again, and it's like, when are you gonna be done? It's frustrating and I shouldn't get frustrated, because I know that everyone has a different background and everyone has a different hurt and different pain that they're dealing with, different struggles, but I don't know. I just want people to open their eyes. It seems like people get so comfortable walking around with their eyes closed. And there's nothing I can do about it, really. I mean, all I can do is what I can do. And that's hard. It's literally painful to think about them or to pray for them, because I just want to do so much, but the situation or their willingness is not allowing me to do more. I'd gotten in a lot of trouble with the law. I mean, at the age of 18, I had a domestic violence charge. I've been in jail a few times, and I remember I was facing a jail sentence. And I went to my drug dealer and I said, look, I have to go to jail on Monday, and I want to get as messed up as possible. What do you have that's stronger? So this is when oxys were the big thing, and he gave me just a little bit of oxy. And I will tell you, my world I fell in love with oxy, and I quickly moved from meth to oxy. My tolerance went up very quickly. From the moment I woke up in the morning, I wanted oxy. I would get so high that I would go in the bathroom and puke uncontrollably. And then I would just do more. I would just do more. I ended up in jail quite often. I've given false identification to the police multiple times. I've ran from the police in the snow, jumping over fences, climbing trees, running into houses that weren't mine to hide. The police, they knew me by name. They knew me very well, and they would always find me because they knew who my friends were. This addiction that is so hard, I don't think people understand it. I didn't understand it. I still don't fully understand it. Man, it gets you. It gets you every time. And I would get out of jail with every intention of staying clean. The first opportunity that there was to get high, as hard as I would fight to keep these walls, firm, I will not get high. It would make me weak in the knees, and I would break down, and I'd use. My mom had enough of it, and she left. She moved away. She said she moved away because of me. It was hard because I had grown up just me and my mom. My dad wasn't around. I am an only child. She's all I knew. So she moved away. And then I was really on my own. It's when I moved up to Everett, streets of Everett. At this point, this Oxycontin addiction had evolved into a heroin addiction. They took Oxycontins away, so the only thing that was left was heroin. I probably smoked heroin for about 6 months before I started shooting up. I mean, it was just a major confirmation that I'm not in control, that I did not have control of what I was doing any longer. From the moment I woke up, I needed to pick up a needle and then have a needle prepared all day until the time I went to bed. Anyway, I would do anything and everything. I did not rob a bank, and I did not kill anyone. I would get drugs for free just by hanging out with people that had drugs. I tried selling drugs to have extra drugs. And then in desperate times, I would prostitute for heroin. It wasn't until someone had said, "Hey, I'm gonna give this girl, I'm gonna give her a chance. I see something, I see an actual human being there that's just dying to get out." Someone had said, "Hey, I have a trailer outside my house, and I'll let you stay there, and I have a business that I own, and you can help out for a couple hours a week." And they were very, very patient. I had gotten off the streets, but I hadn't gotten off drugs. I was still using, and they knew that. And they didn't like it, but I think they knew that I was safer. It was a slow process of starting to feel human again. That's what it was, because when I was out there, I didn't feel human. And I felt there was no hope. I didn't see that there could be anything beyond the edge of the woods. So it was a very long, slow process of re-entering society. And I was given a little bit of responsibility at a time. A little bit at a time. There was one point where I found a box of a giant shipping package full of the needles and paraphernalia that had been taken away from me. I thought I hit the jackpot. So I took it into my room and I made up a shot, and I injected myself, and I quickly realized that I did not inject myself with heroin, and it scared me, because at that point, when you inject something into your vein, you can't take it out. And I went into the bathroom and I filled up the bathtub with water, and I got in the bathtub and I was ready to die. And I prayed with everything that I had in me. I prayed that God would save me. So take this from me, and I promise I'm done. I'm done, and I will live for you, and I'll do whatever it is that you have for me. And I could feel myself dying. I knew that it was up to God. It was His choice at that point. I mean, I had made my choice, and that was to shoot myself up and die. This life that I felt like I had manipulated for all this time, and pushed and pulled and did all these horrible things to get what I wanted my way, was just so graciously spared. I didn't deserve it, and I knew from that point on that the life that was given to me wasn't my life to live for myself anymore. I had the choice to live it for myself, but I didn't want to. I wanted to live it for God. That was the last time I used. It was powerful.
How old were you?
That was October 13th, 2016.
So part of what we're doing here, building on site, is that as the residents come and help us, as we meet the residents that are going to move into these houses, we start to understand them and they understand us. And that's the kind of connections that we've really got to make. Besides the houses, we've got to understand each other. So as you come on site, as I come on site, and the different residents are using these tools, and we talk to them, and we give them a task, and you see what the result is, I think you start to understand between the two of us. Doing it on site's a lot better than doing it in some parking lot and then just moving here and being not attached to it. I mean, it is community, but yeah, that's a big word. I think that that's what somebody sees from, maybe we call it the 10,000 foot level. But when you know that resident's name, now you've made a friend. And when you vote, when you think about a town hall meeting, or when you have friends that complain about somebody on the side of the freeway, whatever else, it's not the same anymore. This is my friend you're talking about. You can't just, be, you won't be the same. You'll be changed.
What's next?
Well, if you look at these tents and you try to imagine being here in January, it's wind, and it's rain, and it's been wet for days. And you imagine these people's lives just living. I mean, you can get out of the rain, but you're inside of a tent. And you imagine how long you'd stand for that, right? So I want to replace 30 more of these tents and give somebody a real place to get out of the weather. Remember, these are sheds. It's not a house. We're going to try to make it real livable, but it's a shed. And for them, that means being able to come home from, if you had a job, come home and get a good night's sleep or get dry. Is that more of these tents get replaced with more of these houses, more of these people are going to get stable, and then the next thing could be, better housing, more permanent housing. And hopefully, the outreach organizations and the city, city services, they're going to be coming on site, and they're going to be connecting with the residents. As they connect with the residents, they can apply for permanent housing. But sometimes it has requirements for paperwork or whatever else. And that takes time. And if people are moving around and they're not in a stable place, then that falls through the cracks, and then you got to restart. So if these houses house people long enough for them to figure out what they're doing next, that's the real thing. We don't want this to be permanent. This is just a step from outside to the next step. Things will change. Things will change. It takes a tough guy to be a foreman.
That's a true story.
So I was telling him I got to get the T-shirt because I'm not used to being a foreman.
Boss.
Yeah. And I had to grow into it.
Yeah, you haven't grown into it. You will. I think those shoes will fit someday. Not now, but soon.
Okay.
Maybe in a year or two. You'll get enough
Well, when we get those
under your
next
belt.
30 houses going,
When you get enough experience under your belt and you get screwed enough times, you'll come to find out that you have to outthink the help. You're not quite there yet, okay? But you'll get it.
You mean because I'm still just a help?
No, actually, you're a damn fine carpenter. The Hungarians have a saying, the work will teach you how to do it. That's where we're at here. This is all new stuff. Nothing I've experienced before, nothing you've experienced before. My grandpa taught me, so I know what my grandpa taught me. And if you combine all of the best of what everyone's got, you should come up with
together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was trained to be a machinist, and I got caught in the export to China manufacturing trap, so things kind of went sour for me in my trade about 1990. I worked for General Electric, and I worked for a company called Northern Manufacturing. I'm generally considered to be a pretty good machinist. Until everything went sour on us, you got to understand that back when Reagan took office, manufacturing started to decline, and jobs became scarcer, and manufacturers became scarcer. And as the work shrunk, the workforce shrunk, and it shrunk us, a lot of us, into other jobs because we couldn't find a position as a machinist. In 1990, I sent out 200 resumes and I didn't get one letter back. And I worked several other jobs doing other things, and I found a guy that owned a house and he wanted me to repair it, but he didn't have a lot of money for wages. So he told me that if I
rebuilt his house, basically, that he'd let me stay there for the rest of my life. Where I had a room that was like 10 by 12 by the utility room down in the basement, and I had use of the bathroom and the kitchen. And so I lived there until I was 66, and he became, he wanted me to move, and he became more aggressively abusive verbally and to my property. So I decided it was time to get out of there before something really bad happened. I offered to build my own house, and I moved into a homeless camp here in Seattle. And I did that because I figured that was the easiest way out. I'm on a pension, but I don't get enough money to go rent a one-bedroom apartment at $1,000 a month and still keep a car and insurance and medical bills. Now, I'm severely ill. I have heart disease, and it's really bad. And I had 3 surgeries in the last year. And my ex-landlord told me that. I said, moving and the stress from relocating could probably kill me. And he said, well, that's your problem because it's your heart. I thought, wow, that's pretty cold. I lived there for 28 years. Problem with that is it's so expensive in Seattle because of migratory incursions that a lot of the people that live here are becoming displaced because landlords can get X number of dollars for their rent, whereas like in Wisconsin or Missouri, rents would be half of what they are here. And so the people like me get trapped and get stuck, and that's what I am. I'm 67 years old. I've got heart disease. I'm literally a resident at the cardiology lab at the University of Washington, and I need a roof over my head, and I need to be warm and safe and dry. And supposedly, by the point system in Washington State, I'm a 16 out of 18, which means that I should be housed immediately, which I'm not because there isn't anywhere to house me, okay? Now, I heard from a social worker at Harborview Medical Center that she's got double amputees in wheelchairs living in storefronts on Queen Anne, so I shouldn't really feel too bad because I can still walk around. And that mortified me when I heard that. I was just dumbstruck. I'm very ill, and there's nothing there. There's nothing there in the way of housing to help someone like me. I take 7 medications a day. I've had 3 heart surgeries in the last year, and here we are. I'm building my own house in a homeless camp.
Something really fundamental has happened that I don't get, which is, if you look at any culture, human culture, for millennia and upon millennia, people were able to, where they lived, construct shelter out of the materials at hand to take care of themselves. Whether it was a peat and mud house in Ireland, or a teepee, or made of mud or made of wood, whatever it was, you could do that. We've literally made that illegal in the city of Seattle. We've made that illegal across the country. If you want to build something to shelter people, you have to get a permit, you got to follow the rules, you got to follow the code, you got to spend a lot of money. And we tell people, well, you can't do that, and you can only build so much housing in certain places. So how did we get to a point in our society where you can't build a house? Like, what's more human than that? I don't know, friendship, companionship, food, But this is what people do. We come together and we build communities, and that includes shelter. This is what we do. This is what we're genetically designed to do. And we've said, well, if you're not wealthy enough, if you can't get a house like the one I'm sitting in right now, or if you can't get an apartment building that meets our criteria, not those dingy single-room occupancy hotels, but a nice apartment building, those are the ones we want. in a nice single family, if you can't build that and afford that, you can't have anything. That's what we've come to in our society. And that's a tremendous failure. It's a moral failure, it's a community failure, it's a political failure. But it's a failure at every level. When we basically say, you don't deserve a place to live because you don't meet our standards. Maybe there are people at the fringes of the debate who say, no, they don't deserve it. They drink too much. They use drugs. They're criminals. They are not from here. They're not like me. But I don't think that's the majority of the people when you really put it to them. And, we're not there now because so many people get to use another excuse, find a moral loophole. Well, the city's wasting money. Oh, well, that would tax jobs, Or it's complicated. It's more complicated than it looks. It's not more complicated than it looks.
People are always asking, what causes homelessness? Why do people become homeless? I wouldn't be the first person to say, well, many people are a lot closer to being homeless in our society than they probably would like to think. One major setback, you lose your job. You have a big health crisis. You end up with $100,000 hospital bill, which is very easy to do. And all of a sudden, what seemed like that you were doing okay financially, suddenly you find yourself in difficulties. And it doesn't take a lot of these for people to end up, suddenly on the streets. One of the things that a lot of people in the camps are missing is that differentiates them from people who have the same things happen to them, but who do not end up on the streets, is that the folks in the camps don't have those personal safety nets. They don't have a network of people who support them. Let's say I have really bad months where I don't make enough to pay the rent or to pay the mortgage on my house or to get food. I have a family that's going to be right there for me. Somebody's going to send me a little check, or somebody's going to say, if worse came to worse and I had to leave the house, they would say, oh, come live with us for a while, no problem. And you find that a lot of people, they move in with relatives. They're couch surfing at the very least. They have friends or relatives that will support them that way and get them over that difficult time. But I think one reason people will end up on the streets is that they maybe don't have that safety net. They're alone. Today I'm going down to take down a load of tents, canopies. In the summertime, they put up canopies, sometimes over tents, to keep the sun off them. And this helps keep the tents a little bit cooler because those tents get stinking hot in the summertime. We're also taking down some food, some tables, pillows, things like that, that people can use. These all come to us through these big box stores. These are things that have been returned, or for some other reason, they're considered not non-saleable. Sometimes it's because the packaging is damaged. There's a lot of people who look at this kind of work and they go, why are you supporting these camps? You're just enabling people to not get a job or not work or whatever. And so, I'm careful who I talk to about this. I'm lucky to have neighbors who are very supportive. But I also know from the online networks that there's lots of people that think that this is either stupid or it's even wrong because it's supporting people they think in living a lifestyle they don't agree with. But my point of view is that everybody deserves food, clothing, and shelter. I don't care who you are or what you've done. So I don't, there are people in the camps that maybe deserve help, and maybe there are people who don't deserve help, and I figure that's not my business to decide. I just feel like everybody needs a place, a shelter over their head and food to eat and a clothing to put on their backs. And that's what I'm all about here.
I was in a relationship with one of the rangers that I met down in Texas that worked at Big Bend National Park. She wanted to be a Seattle police officer. And so I decided to follow. if you will. And we moved to Tacoma because it seemed to be the most affordable place, like right off the bat. Since we were kind of jumping into this new world, we wanted to kind of at least be financially somewhat, figure it out. She was applying for jobs in Seattle. It's a long process to become a cop, and I needed a job. So I thought to myself, okay, what can I do? I really wanted to deliver mail. I wanted to be a mail carrier since I was in 5th grade. And so I applied. And the first people that offered me the job was Seattle. And so I accepted the job, unknowing how bad the traffic was going to be and the commute was going to be. I mean, that was a big slap in the face when I figured that out. So I was working for the post office about 60, 70 hours a week. And my partner was filling out forms for the police department, and then worked at the Mount Rainier National Park as a law enforcement ranger. And so after a year lease was up, I said I need to move closer to my job until I get converted to regular, so that I can have, like an 8-hour day would be great, and maybe have Sundays off every Sunday. That would be great. And so I stuck with it. And so I was living in this little apartment up here in West Seattle, over there in Del Ridge. And it was a micro studio. I had a top floor vaulted ceiling micro unit with its own bathroom. The price was reasonable at the time. I paid $875 a month, and everything was included. And then when they raised the rent, after 6 months, after my lease was up, to $905, I was like, okay, I can still do this, because I still couldn't leave Seattle. I wanted to stick with my job with the post office. They had this new thing that after you get converted, you have to give 1.5 years of your time to whatever city converted you. I really want to be able to transfer with this. This is the whole point of having it, something I love to do and something I can move with. So I wanted to get out, but I wanted to keep my job. That's where it was coming down to. And then the rent raised again. And then it went up to $1,025. And I ended up finding a room at this gentleman's house that lives kind of in the same area, over near Pigeon Point, kind of near the South Seattle Community College. We were pretty quick to get along great, and then we had differing views towards the end, and it was time for me to find another place to live. When that happened, I couldn't find a place. I was really struggling to find any place that would even respond to me about my situation. Just anyone that had a room available. I mean, I would send out probably 10 emails a day trying to find a place, and I would not even get a response. And after 2 months of that, I said, you know what? I don't want to have to keep moving around anyway. And I told my old roommate that the next place I move into will be a school bus that I convert, because it just makes sense in this day and age. Tiny houses, people are absolutely looking to get away from having to pay overpriced rent that no one can really afford. So I decided I am not in the business of working to live. I want to live my life. I'm tired of having to just make money to pay for a roof over my head, when I was happy as a homeless person living out of my backpack for so many years in my 20s. I couldn't even fathom giving any more money to that system. So I started looking at RVs. This one came for sale at a price that I could afford. He listed it for $5,500. At the time, I had $5,500. And I said to myself, okay, I'm doing this. I think this is the next step. I'm going to have this paid off if I were to think how much I was paying on rent. And then I'll be saving money, saving. And that's the whole goal for me. I want to have money put away so that I can do the things that I love to do. I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. And people that do that, I feel bad for them. I don't want to be one of you though. That's not my goal in life. And so I bought this RV. I felt really proud of myself. I was just like,
yeah, I'm figuring life out. You know, I had coworkers coming up to me and going, "Are you serious?" They were coming over to visit, checking out my new digs, you know, and they were all like, "Oh my gosh, like I should do this." Most of the people that I know now have had that kind of reaction to coming over and seeing where I live. They're just like, "Wow, this is really cool. You have a fridge? You've got a stove and an oven?" I was like, "Yeah, I have more in this RV as far as cooking is concerned than I have in any place that I've rented in Seattle." Weird, right? Weird. So this made sense. And it was great. It was really great until my generator broke down. And I started to realize that this was a home. I bought a home and I don't have a landlord. I can't just call to fix things. It's been an experience that I have become more seasoned to. I don't have anything really of value in this RV. The things that I had that people wanted to take, they took. And I had 2 generators stolen since I've been down here. They were both chained up at the time. And so then I'm having all of that in my life, the stealing, and now I'm getting eggs thrown at me. I'm sitting in this chair and I'm looking at eggs being thrown off of the porch of some man's house and landing all around my RV, aimed towards me. And I'm thinking to myself, where do I fit? Where do I fit in here? I can't afford rent. I'm working hard. I'm busy. I can't hang out with my neighbors because they have problems that I can't fix. And it's really hard for me to be around. And I can't even be accepted by the people that don't get it. They just don't get why I'm here. They don't understand. I get notes on my RV that'll say I'm really afraid. And I don't understand why they're afraid. I don't understand how you'd be afraid of me. I used to make the joke all the time, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scary do you think I am?
0.
0? See, I would get negative like 5,000s. But now I feel like I'm probably on like, maybe even a 7. I might even be a 7 on the scary scale to some of these people. It is mind-blowing to me. If you were to meet me and not know that this is my RV and that I live in an RV, would you think I live in an RV? Because I know myself, and I know I'm a kind heart, and I know I'm a giver and a lover. And I don't know, I see that in other people. I wonder why they can't see it.
I think a lot of people in Seattle think that all of a sudden, a few years ago, there was this crisis out of nowhere. And that's not true. There has been a crisis for a long time, but the cities wouldn't recognize it. There's just a lot of misinformation that gets bandied about on like the next door networks and all the social media that is just patently untrue. I mean, for example, this idea that people come to Seattle specifically because we have such good homeless services. But when you look at the data from the intakes, they ask, where was your last permanent residence? And, for a vast majority of people, their last permanent residence was Seattle or a city right around Seattle. And for almost even more, it was Washington State. People don't want to think that the people who are homeless are their neighbors. It's interesting. There is a camp that is often hosted here in Shoreline. And when I checked, there were a number of people living in that camp. They grew up here. They went to our high schools. This is their home. These are not them. They are us, right? They're part of us. And I think that is very uncomfortable for a lot of people.
One of the reasons I think people get nervous about talking about or thinking about homelessness is in some ways the canary in the coal mine, right? It's we're seeing the impact of inequality and all of our various crises that are coming together in our society now as it impacts some of the people who are most vulnerable to those crises.
People have to be somewhere. We do not have market rate housing that they can afford to live in. Public housing is being cut back more and more all the time. We all know this. And there's this sort of wishful thinking. I think that if we're just repressive enough, if we keep sweeping these encampments, if we make it unpleasant enough for people who are trying to survive on our streets, that they will eventually go somewhere else. Well, there's nowhere else for them to go because the communities around us are doing the same thing.
For the people that say that tiny houses make you comfortable and lazy and you feel like you don't have to do anything now and all that stuff like that, you know, how do you feel in your own home? You know, how do you feel? Do you feel lazy? Do you feel like you don't want to do anything? I mean, seriously, like, do you feel that way in your own house? Do you feel like, I don't want to move now. Now that I have a house, I guess I don't have to do anything with my life. Okay? Well, you can't judge everyone that lives in a tiny house by those standards if you yourself wouldn't do that. Because let me tell you something. You never know what can happen to you. You never know 3 months from now where you're going to be. And you can say, I have this, I have that, I have this. Well, I did this, I did this. Well, you know, a lot of people were saying that stuff back in 1929 too. You know, and in 2008. You know, they had it going on, and now they're living in a freaking trailer. Okay. So don't get cocky. You know, we're all human beings, and just like any genre, okay, you're gonna have people that are gonna be bad apples, and you're gonna have people that are gonna be good apples. But you can't generalize and judge everybody. Now you're just discriminating against all homeless and all homeless encampments. Now you're taking it from, you know, a homeless issue and housing homeless people to judging all of us and put us in a box and saying they're all drug dealers, all criminals, all this. You know, drug addicts. You know, they're lazy, all of them. Okay? That's just not fair. It doesn't make sense. Honestly, it doesn't make sense, and it sounds pretty stupid. Anybody who's being real will know that not everyone's the same, man. You know, you're going to have people that are going to take an opportunity like this and use it to better themselves. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing now. And like I've seen other people in here doing, man. Okay? You're going to have people in here that are actually using it for a break to get away from drugs. You see? I mean, really, sometimes being on the street and being homeless is enough stress to drive people to drugs. And the drugs are right there. They're right there. So you're going to keep doing them. You go to a place like this, you have a structure, whatever, then you're able to get a job. You're able to start thinking about your future again. You're able to quit. Okay? You know, I have a place to sleep. I have a place to put my clothes.
I mean, I do think there are a lot of people who are opposed to homeless encampments in that they are concerned that this becomes the final goal. And, you know, as they very well will say, you know, our goal should not be to house people in tents. You know, that should not be our goal. Our goal should be to get people into permanent housing, which, you know, nobody in the homeless advocate community disagrees with that. I think the disagreement comes when you say, because it's not the final goal, we should shut down the camps. There isn't enough low income housing. And even if we started today to build, how many years will it take to increase the housing stock enough so that there will be low income housing enough for everybody who is now homeless? I mean, it's years and years away. And so what happens in the meantime?
If you're angry about everything that's going on, if you can't say or do something nice, then just don't do anything at all. Don't honk at everybody down here. Don't try to break windows. Don't yell things or teach your kids that we're all disgusting ingrates.
It's like, well, you know, they're lazy, they're incompetent, they didn't do anything, they didn't study enough, they didn't make the right decisions, they made poor life choices. What I think is, let's demonize the poor. Let's pick on people that don't have any money to fight back, and they don't deserve to be comfortable because they're lazy and shiftless, and they don't do anything to help themselves, which is utter rubbish. You know, that is just absolutely absurd. Okay? And the people who launch that thinking, okay, are just as absurd as what comes out of their mouth. You have a personal catastrophe beyond your control, you become homeless, and you're the bad guy? I mean, come on, take a break.
My name is Rex Holbein. I'm an architect in Seattle here. I've lived my entire life in Seattle, love this city. And about 10 years ago, when I was practicing architecture in the Fremont neighborhood, I began to meet people that were living along the canal there, the ship canal in Fremont. The people that I was meeting did not match the negative stereotype, which is something that I think that we all hold. And that negative stereotype in some type of summary looks like these people are criminals, they're lazy, they're taking advantage of the system. I decided to start a Facebook page called Facing Homelessness, and the idea of it was to just take black and white photos and tell something beautiful about this person only for the single purpose of addressing the negative stereotype. I felt if people could just see how beautiful each person was that was outside, that they would on their own question the negative, and maybe that would be enough for each person to begin their own journey, much as I had found myself on. At the very same time, as I was meeting more and more people that were outside, I was allowing them to come to my office, my architecture office, to use the bathroom. And when that happened, almost overnight, my office turned into a drop-in center. People were knocking on the door all day long, you know, hey, can I come in and use the bathroom? I heard it's okay. And that bathroom use turned to, can I have a cup of coffee? Can I sit in your conference room? It's raining outside. On the opposite side of it, people were coming to drop things off for people that were staying there, that were coming for you know, a moment. And so my office became also a drop-off center. And you know, my wife and I were kind of like, over dinner, we're constantly wondering, okay, what's going on here? Like, where's this all going? And I went from, quite frankly, I went from making really good money, living a comfortable life, to 2 years of making less than poverty. And the dinner table conversations with my wife turned to, you know, her asking, what are you doing? And I would say, I don't know. and it came to a place where I either needed to close my architecture practice and start a nonprofit, or really stop allowing people to come into my office because it was overtaking my business. It was just so much more emotional, so much more real, meeting people that were struggling to survive out on the streets. So out of that came the idea that we would start a nonprofit. And the message, the simple mission of what we wanted to do was to bring community into the equation of ending homelessness. Yes, government, nonprofits, religion, we're all doing really important work, but if we were going to be honest about this conversation, I think we needed to come to grips with the fact that we were not going to end homelessness unless every single person rushed to this emergency, to this crisis, much like a small town would rush with sandbags to a river that was going to overflow and flood everybody in the town, how everybody would get involved for each other. This is what's important. If we really mean it, that we want to end homelessness, then we all need to do something. This was not a compassion issue. We're all compassionate. We're all beautiful, loving, caring people. Rather, it was a proximity issue, that people were just missing it. They were just not close enough. And in that proximity, being too far away from it, the negative stereotype was replacing our thought, our feelings about the issue of homelessness. And time again, when someone came close enough to the issue, to actually seeing the human being within the larger, overwhelming issue of homelessness, that it changed them, that they wanted to do something. And it's similar to this idea, if you see someone that's homeless, that is across the street, perhaps on the sidewalk, and you're on the sidewalk across the street, you might ask yourself a number of questions, such as, I wonder why that person's homeless, or are they choosing to be homeless? Are they taking drugs? Are they a criminal? And we can find answers to those questions in our own heads, and we can actually take that conversation to friends over dinner, at a coffee shop, and we can all discuss it. And really the beginnings of helping happen when you cross the street, when you actually come closer to that person, and as you approach and you begin to see the humanity of the situation, the questions, the intellectual questions begin to fall away, and they're replaced with emotional ones, such as, are you okay? What's your name? Is there anything I can do to help you right now? Right? Those are very different questions from the heart than what the head is asking. We have a little formula at Facing Homelessness that says, the closer you get, the more you feel. The more you feel, the more you act. And it's not any more complicated than that. So, the Block Project. The Block Project for Facing Homelessness is this incredibly beautiful project about community, and I would start by saying it has to do again with this proximity discussion about the closer you get, the more you feel, the more you feel, the more you act. We talked about how do we bring people closer to this issue, and as architects we wanted to design a home. That grew into the idea of what if we actually made use of the detached accessory dwelling unit zoning and put a small home, a very small home that had kitchen, bath, sleeping in the backyards of residential lots in the city of Seattle.
So this is Bobby's house, right in the back of ours. It's here. Come on in. So the bed pulls out. You can turn it into a little sofa like this. There's plenty of storage. There's a radiant heat panel in the roof. Water heater, sink, shower, toilet. I mean, this is a real house. I wouldn't mind living here. It's pretty nice. I wouldn't ask someone to live in a house that I wouldn't want to live in myself.
So I work for a mechanical engineering firm, and Rex came to talk to us about the Block Project as part of a program we have of bringing nonprofits in to tell us what they're about and how we can help. Dan and I have both really struggled with seeing people living homeless in our neighborhood. We walk to work through the International District, and we would see maybe as many as 100 people every morning on our walk to work who were living in tents and just under bridges and in doorways. And it's awful, and it's not the kind of world we want to live in. And we really struggled with how to make a difference and how to, I guess, kind of plug in to being part of the solution. So when Rex came to talk to my company about putting tiny houses in people's backyards, we both immediately knew that we wanted to be involved. I originally thought I might have to talk Dan into it, and I had my sales pitch already, and I came home and I got about 30 seconds into the description of the project, and he said, "Oh, we should do that." And it's great for us because we have some space, and we're able to be good neighbors, but we don't know things about how to hook people up with healthcare or where to get food stamps. We don't know the issues that somebody who's been on the street might be dealing with, or how to hook up with services for those needs. So it was great that the Chief Seattle Club provides casework for Bobby. So if he has any of those needs, they can take care of it, and we just do what we can do, which is providing some space and being good neighbors. We just love Bobby. He's so great. He's pretty busy doing his own thing. He's got a routine that he's really stuck to since he's moved in here. He leaves early every morning and goes to the Chief Seattle Club and has breakfast. We tend to see him in passing most days and have an actual chat or a meal together, or just hang out together maybe once a week. He's been homeless pretty much since the arthritis in his hands got bad enough that he couldn't do the manual labor that was paying his bills. I want to live in a world where we take care of one another. And I think that's kind of, the baseline for me. I want to be in a society where compassion and caring for one another is a driver for decision making and budgets and policies. It's clearly not happening in this city and throughout the country. So I believe that there is definitely a role for government in collecting taxes and using those taxes to meet the basic needs of everyone in the society. But we definitely need more housing. We need more affordable housing, and we need it now. And this is a great solution for the people who move into these houses, and it can permanently end their homelessness. There were folks who were homeless who came and volunteered to build things on this project. There were people who were affluent who came to help. Yeah, I think if we're going to survive as a society and a species, we need to take care of one another. We feel like we've gotten so much more than we've given out of this. Bobby he's made our world bigger. We gave up a little bit of space and we got a bigger world.
There's 3 different types of people in the world. There's the people that make things happen, the people that watch things happen, and the people that sit around and wonder what is happening.
There isn't a one-size-fits-all approach here. I'd say that the only one-size-fits-all approach in that context is housing. Affordable housing is the one thing that will allow people to come inside.
We were taught as children, the greater your gift, the greater your blessings, the greater your responsibility is to other people. A lot of my instincts, and they're just natural instincts, okay? If you're standing in front of somebody, they fall down, you reach down, you help them stand back up. It's a natural instinct. And I think that's what we've forgotten. And I'm hoping that this is what this documentary that you're shooting does. It reconnects our humanity. Okay? Our humanity is extremely important for us to always, always see each other as human beings. We have to be there with that light on when they want to reconnect. Can you imagine if there was no one there with a light on?
I get excited a lot of times because I see all the different names and different organizations, and they just come out and put their belt on just like normal neighbors, like we should do. Just building things, saving one soul, one life at a time. That's all we need to do. We need to help each other, keep this America strong. It was built on helping hands and working side by side with all cultures, all walks of life, different ages.
Well, there's so many levels for people to get involved, and Seattle has, I think, always been pretty good at people stepping up and giving out of their pocketbook. And as important as anything else, and maybe the most important, is to, in your day-to-day life, recognize and treat people as you would want to be treated if you were undergoing the same kind of crisis or emergency in your life.
If you only need to hear one thing, as someone listening to this, I would say, regardless of where you are on this issue, and this is a very important point, is that we're not all at the same place. Wherever you are, I would say, constantly lean forward into it. There is nothing more important than the care that we give each other. A lot of times we spend time spinning our wheels because we don't know what to do, and there's no time for that. Just step into that room, and whatever happens, your own creative compassion will push you forward. But just trust that you have the ability to make a huge difference as one person.
I think that if we band together as a community of people that make things happen, however that may be, that's where we'll see real change happen.
Answer to it, strangely enough, is that we need to treat people the way we would want to be treated. You know, we need to recognize that people are going through really, really hard times, that they're damaged by it, that they're traumatized by it, that they don't often have a grip on their own lives right now, and they need help, they need assistance.
If you want to help, try just smiling or being kind to the people that you're passing. We notice you. You notice us. It goes both ways. And It could easily be anybody. It could be some of your closest friends that end up down here. They lose their job. I mean, it could happen so quickly to where this is the best option. So be careful. Be careful how you treat other people. I mean, it could be you later.
All of us that live inside, at different times, will find ourselves at a fine dining, right? Maybe with the person that we love, or a really good friend, or maybe a business associate. And we're at a really nice dining place. We're dressed up, and we're having a meal that was exquisitely cooked. And maybe both of you are commenting that you've never tasted food this good. And you're really enjoying the moment. Meanwhile, there's someone under a bridge that maybe is dealing with an abscess that's bleeding out, and they're actually in unbelievable pain and fear. But we can enjoy that meal and that moment because that person is miles away. If you took that person and you put them right on the floor next to you, could you enjoy that meal? This is why we need to come closer.